Hello, Legionnaires, and welcome to 10-Minute Introductions, the series where we provide a 10,000-foot overview of a game or game system and try to do it in 10 minutes or less. Stay tuned until the end of this video for information regarding our 3,000 subscriber giveaway. Now let's get started. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to what was my favorite game of the 1990s and 2000s, and that game is EARTHDAWN. If you like these 10-minute introductions, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to Legion of Myth with bell icon notification, and sharing is caring. Good karma is bound to come your way if you share this video with your tabletop RPG friends. Alright, let's start off with character creation. To create a character in EARTHDAWN, the first thing you'll want to do is choose the character's discipline, which is like the character class or profession in other games, but is so much more. From Swordmasters to Nethermancers to Scouts to Sky Raiders, whatever your playstyle, there's a discipline for you. To better explain what disciplines are and how they are different from character classes or professions, I created a video series a couple years ago that covers each of the disciplines. Look for the link to those videos in the description below to learn more about the disciplines of EARTHDAWN. Moving on, in EARTHDAWN you'll find the standard dwarves, elves, and humans, as well as playable orcs and trolls, and the unique races of the Tiskrang, think lizardmen, Obsidian, genderless sentient rock, and Windlings, 18-inch tall fairy folk. Each name-giver race, as they are called, has its own racial ability, such as the Tiskrang's tail attack or the troll's heat sight. The race selected also determines the character's starting attributes, the initial point from where you'll spend attribute points to increase those values. The character's attributes directly affect secondary characteristics, like how hard the character is to hit or charm, and how many hits the character can take. Attributes also determine what dice you roll when performing the character's skills and the discipline's talents. Next, you'll want to determine your character's talents and skills. The available talents for your character is determined by the character's discipline. Talents and skills may seem similar on the surface, but in both game lore and game mechanics, they are treated differently. Talents are powered by magic, while skills are representative of training and experience. EARTHDAWN gameplay has changed a bit across the editions, however, one thing has remained, and that's the use of the step chart, even if the step chart itself has changed. Instead of rolling a die or dice and adding modifiers to the die roll, in EARTHDAWN modifiers add or subtract steps, which determines the dice you roll. Let's say your character's dexterity attribute step is 6, with a melee weapon talent rank of 4. This means when the character attacks with a broadsword, you'll roll step 10, 6 plus 4 equals 10, to make the melee weapon test. According to the step chart, at step 10, you roll 2d8, and you'll roll these dice versus the target's physical defense. If your melee weapon test of 2d8 is equal to or higher than the target's physical defense, the character's attack hits. As an aside, for every 5 points you roll higher than the required target number, you'll receive extra successes. In combat, that potentially means more damage, while during an investigation it means more information is provided. You get the idea. After a successful melee weapon attack test, the damage test is rolled in a similar manner. The character's strength attribute is added to the weapon's damage step to determine the damage dice to roll. The target's physical armor reduces the result of the damage test roll, so if you roll 10 points of damage to a character with an armor rating of 7, 10 minus 7 equals 3 points of actual damage dealt to the target. The system may seem very simplistic, and as a credit to the game system, EARTHDAWN does start out simplistic. However, the system grows with the character. I think previous editions did that a little better than 4th edition, specifically due to how characters now have earlier access to the thread weaving talent in 4th edition, but that's both beyond the scope of this video and very easily managed by the Game Master. After just enough time to learn the basic mechanics and understand the magical and mundane capabilities of your character, the game opens the floodgates of magical content. Magic items, group patterns, talent knacks, and many other terms that mean nothing to you if you've never played the game before. There are many talents, tactics, and combat options that make combat very interesting, And as the characters increase in circle, the term the game uses for levels, they become very, what I call, anime-esque or demigod-looking in capability or power. There are no healers in the manner you may be used to from other fantasy games. Instead, each character receives a number of recovery tests based on the character's toughness attribute. After a minute of rest outside of combat, the player rolls to see how many points of damage the character recovers. Most starting characters can do this 2 or 3 times per day. One important thing I didn't mention is that the dice used in EARTHDAWN are exploding dice. What this means is that if you roll the maximum number possible on the die, a 6 on a d6, an 8 on a d8, you roll the die again and add it to the total. If that 2d8 melee weapon test from earlier rolls an 8 and a 5, you re-roll the die that rolled an 8. If, for example, the re-roll comes up as a 4, you add 8 plus 5, the original rolls, plus 4, the bonus roll, for a total of 17. Okay. You can't talk about EARTHDAWN without talking about magic. Yet, there is no way to properly talk about the magic of EARTHDAWN in just a couple of minutes. Magic touches everything in the world of EARTHDAWN. As mentioned earlier, your character's talents are magical. And I didn't even mention the discipline's half-magic abilities. I also didn't mention the character's karma die. The karma die is a bonus d6 the player can roll to enhance the character's talent tests. Once again, using the 2d8 example from earlier, instead of just a 2d8 roll, the player can spend a karma point to roll 2d8 plus a d6 to make that same melee weapon attack test. Oh yes, karma dies explode as well. There are potions, poultices, and unguents. You can use blood charms to improve accuracy, or blood magic to enforce an oath. You can build magical bonds between characters to improve abilities. As you learn more about the magical items in your possession, you can bond to them as well, unlocking more and more power. Heck, your character's name is magical. Of course, if there is this much magic in the game world, there must be spellcasters, right? While every discipline makes overt use of magic, there are 4 magician disciplines: Elementalist, Illusionist, Nethermancer, and Wizard. Magicians can safely cast magical spells they learn if they store the energy of those spells in a spell matrix, or the magician can risk physical harm and the attention of the horrors by casting raw magic. Not recommended, but sometimes a hero has to do what a hero has to do. So what is it you do in EARTHDAWN? Well, the various name-giver races have only recently reappeared after hiding underground, or even in other pocket dimensions, while the horrors ravaged the world during a time known as the Scourge. Think of horrors as part Cthulhu Great Old One and part Dungeons & Dragons Demon. As magic becomes more powerful, the horrors have an easier time entering our world from astral space. As magic power wanes, the horrors find it harder to enter our world. When there is no more magic, like in the year 2022, the horrors are sealed off. This waxing and waning of magic is supposed to work like a pendulum swing. The problem is, magic ebbed to a point, then stopped. It didn't continue to fall to a truly safe level. Why? Well, that's one of the mysteries of EARTHDAWN. While the world is much safer than it was a couple hundred years ago, where survival outside of magically protected Kara Citadel was impossible, the horrors still remain, as does the damage they cause to the planet. The Theran Empire, who provided the secrets of protection from the horrors during the Scourge, at the cost of fealty, have come back to claim its due. Then there are the interspecies politics of all good fantasy games, cults, dragons, still closed cares horrors were able to penetrate, and so much more. It may not be quite post-apocalyptic, but it's pretty darn close. It is a game of exploration, discovery and rediscovery, a game of ridding the world of horrors, and a fantasy game of heroes and legends, and wherever your imagination takes you. May your legend grow. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Sharing is caring. I'm really interested in what you think of this series so far, and look forward to reading your comments. Join Legion of Myth on RPG Digest livestream every Sunday at 1 p.m. on YouTube. RPG Digest is a 3-segment livestream podcast. In segment 1, we provide fundamentals, overviews, and read-throughs of games and game systems. In segment 2, we provide opinions, commentary, rants and raves on the RPG hobby and the weirdos within the hobby. In segment 3, you can call in and join us on the stream to share your thoughts and experiences. As soon as we reach 3,000 subscribers, we are going to have a giveaway. You can see on the screen the hardcover books we're going to give away. These hardcovers are only available to continental US mailing addresses, including APO and FPO. For our Alaska, Hawaii, and international subscribers, we will provide either Amazon or more likely drive-thru-RPG gift cards if it's legal to do so in your area. Apparently that's an issue for some locations. So help us reach 3,000 subscribers so we can give away these fantastic prizes. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. All right, are we done? Are we done? Is the 10-minute thing over? Is it 10 minutes? Probably a lot longer than that. There are two questions I'm constantly asked about with regard to EARTHDAWN. And essentially it stems down to what edition of EARTHDAWN is my favorite and what edition of EARTHDAWN should you play? Well, I never answer those questions as asked because unfortunately there are personal opinions involved. Like how the new FASA games is made up of woke trash as a dumpster fire of postmodernist and third-wave feminist idiocracy. I will not purchase any product from the current FASA games. With that said, the 4th edition of EARTHDAWN, at least the first 2 books, unless FASA Games has also ruined those in later printings, is probably the best put together version of EARTHDAWN. The 4E construct works very well, and the disciplines are much more thought out, especially at the higher circles of play. With that said, 4th edition does suffer from 2 major flaws in my opinion. The first flaw is homogenization of the disciplines. Discipline selection just doesn't matter as much as it used to or as much as it should. Now, to be fair, this problem started in 3rd edition, so I don't blame 4E for this, though I wish 4E would have rolled back the clock on that. The second flaw I didn't see in playtesting, but when it came to my first real group, this was a constant area of complaint, and that's the new success level mechanic. In 4E, the success level mechanic is superior to the success level chart of the earlier editions in every aspect except one, the most important one, combat. Let's face it, tabletop RPGs spend a lot of time in combat. In the previous editions, you roll your attack test versus the target's physical defense, just as stated earlier in the video. If the result of the test is equal to or higher than the target's physical defense, you compare the result to the success level chart. For example, if the target's physical defense is an 8, and you roll the 17 presented earlier in the video, the success level chart tells you that is an excellent success. An excellent success means the attack is armor defeating. The target's armor does not reduce the amount of damage you roll. Why is the chart superior, at least for combat? First, you know what damage dice you're rolling even before you roll the attack test. You don't have to fumble around after your amazing attack to find the correct dice to roll simply because you scored extra successes. Now, each extra success on the attack test provides plus 2 steps to damage. In playtesting, I didn't see this 2-step increase as a problem. However, with my real group that consisted mostly of players with no previous EARTHDAWN experience, there was a lot of, what dice do I roll now? And many times they still rolled the wrong dice. Everyone complained about the slowdown and confusion over simply trying to figure out what damage dice to roll in the heat of combat. Even my experienced player who memorized the step chart preferred the success level chart of the previous editions to the extra steps of 4th edition. But there's another part to this, a part even the extra step provided to damage couldn't make up for, and that's the armor defeating hit. You see, in 4th edition, even with extra successes and the extra potential damage, which isn't that much by the way, it increases 2 steps from 1 success, extra success, means an average of 2 extra points of damage. An increase of 4 steps from 2 extra successes means an average of 4 extra points of damage, and so on. That does not have the same excitement as rolling an armor defeating hit. Sure, an armor defeating hit may not mean much against a pack of wolves. I mean, how much armor do wolves wear? But against a troll in crystal plate armor or against an obsidian gargoyle, nothing puts a smile on a player's face as much as an armor-defeating hit. And that's why the 4th edition success level mechanic, while an improvement outside of combat, is a detriment to the game's enjoyment in combat. So you might think I prefer one of the earlier editions. Look, every edition has its flaws. I ran 1st edition for years, but there are some noticeable issues for which I had to create house rules to resolve. And don't get me started on high circle 1st edition characters. I don't think they were ever play tested. Since I own all 4 editions of EARTHDAWN, here's how I would play it if I were to run an EARTHDAWN campaign today. I would either play 1st edition EARTHDAWN with my house rules and the 2nd edition skill system, or I would play 4th edition EARTHDAWN with the 1st edition success chart for combat only. Alright, I hope that helps, and I hope you have a wonderful day.